privilege of introducing our dynamic keynote speaker, Mr. Matt Morgan. Matt Morgan is a former WWE superstar, former American Gladiator, and now the current Longwood Mayor. He was appointed to Seminole County's Opioid Council, where he is able to use his own past experiences and story of sobriety to now be part of the solution. Mr. Morgan prides himself on supporting other families with special needs within the community through free advocacy work. Matt is no stranger to the special education world either, as he spent the first 6 years in school in the ESE program. And now he has an 8-year-old son who is nonverbal, autistic, and proudly attends Orange County Public Schools. Mr. Morgan is a very, very proud special needs and neurodiversity advocate, nationally as well as here locally. He has overcome many challenges throughout his life, but his story reminds us that despite obstacles, our possibilities are endless. Without any further delay, I'd like to welcome Mr. Matt Morgan.
Thank you so much for having me. What a huge honor, sincerely. Before I begin, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it back to where it all started for me. As you just heard, before I begin, I am Longwood City Mayor Matt Morgan. Very blessed to have been a former WWE superstar, living out my little 6-year-old boy childhood dream, if you will, as well as a former American Gladiator, where I played this character called the Beast. And if you saw me in person, I'm 7 feet tall, I'm 300 pounds. You wouldn't be shocked by that. But nonetheless, I wanted to go back, though, to 1982/1983. I had just been kicked out of my third grammar school at the time, where I grew up in Connecticut. And I'll never forget this. Someone to remain nameless. I remember telling my mother, as I was being booted out of another school yet again for what they said were behavioral issues. My mother grabs me by the hand and gets me and marches me right out of that meeting and said, "There's nothing wrong with my Matthew. There's something wrong with your school." And to anybody, any parent watching this, the confidence my mom showed in me is something that even at age 46 today, she stays with us now, with me and my wife Larissa and my son Jackson. That still to this day I look back on, and it still gives me that backbone and that confidence that a little boy desperately needed at a time that I was very confused. Everyone kept telling me what a bad kid I was. And so, again, this was a long time ago, obviously. So with that, my mom started doing a ton of different research. This is before the age of the internet, keep in mind, folks. So I'll never forget this. There was an ad in the Connecticut Post, which is a newspaper up north, and they were giving out a free trial for testing on what would then become attention deficit disorder. And this is very long. This is way before it became very prevalent of children being diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, keep in mind. So Yale University wasn't too far from where we lived in Connecticut, and they were doing this free test, this free trial. So for about a week, I spent at Yale University hospitals, where they had all these different electrodes on my head. It's something out of a movie is the best way to explain it. And I remember loving it because they had a great toy room, and I remember that's all I cared about as a little kid. And but sincerely, they were able to, long story short, determine I had attention deficit disorder as well as a severe speech impediment issue. With that said, they started to try me on a medicine back then that was called Ritalin. Now, to each their own, right? I'm not going to get into a speech about pharmaceuticals versus not, but I will say for me, just me, in my case, while the teachers were going to be happy that I was finally calmed down a little bit by this, Ritalin, my mom didn't like it because she said I was way too lethargic and way too withdrawn, and I wasn't her little Matthew anymore. She could tell a big difference. So they took me off of that. My mom continuing to do research found a special education class that was probably 2 districts over from where I lived. And I don't know how she got it done, but there would be this bus that would come pick me up and bring me to this new school. And back then, I was placed in a special education class. And I was in this classroom with kids of all different ages, all different shapes, sizes, makes, and models of learning disabilities, and in certain cases, physical disabilities as well. They would group us all together in one class. So, a long story short, we found out what worked best for me, again, because my mom didn't give up, and nor did my teachers. Behavior modification. Behavior modification was the key to my success. And then I was very blessed to have the best in the world. I'll never forget her name. Her name is Miss Carter Nicholas. I'll never forget her. She was my primary education, special education teacher, pretty much from my 1st grade through 5th grade. She had me every year in that special education class, and she would work tirelessly with me. And if I did well, I would be allowed to go take part in a couple of mainstream classes like per week, and where I would have Mrs. Yetman, who was my 3rd grade mainstream teacher. Those 2 teachers were very important to me because they both introduced me to sports and athletics, and behavior modification being the key on what worked best for me. This is, in retrospect, it probably sounds a little wild today, but I'd be allowed to go outside if I paid attention, I did my work, I didn't come out of my cubicle, because back then that's how it worked best for me to learn. I'd be in this 3-sided cubicle where I had no choice but to pay attention to my reading and my test taking. And it was great. It worked magically for me. But if I did well, I'd be allowed to go outside, shoot 10 free throws, and come back inside again. It was awesome. It worked so well for me. And it was an individualized learning plan, if you will. And again, from my specific case, it worked amazing. So with that, we're going to now fast forward to me becoming the first college graduate of my family. I got a Division I full basketball scholarship to First Monmouth University in New Jersey, where I appeared in the 1996 NCAA March Madness tournament. And then I transferred out to Chaminade University of Honolulu, Hawaii, where I ended up graduating and meeting my future wife, my first day on campus, my beautiful wife, Larissa Morgan. And for, I would say, the first 10 years of my pro wrestling career, my wife and I prayed very hard on wanting to be parents. I mean, we did everything you could possibly think of to try to be parents. We went through about 7 or 8 different bouts of IVF with ICSI. It's incredibly expensive. None of them worked. Kept praying on it. Eventually, around year 12, she got pregnant. Naturally, above all. It was incredible. And I'll never forget it. So now we fast forward to January 7th, 2014, the best day of my life. My little beautiful boy, Jackson Morgan, was born. And holding him in the delivery room, all right, I made the decision that I was not expecting to make. The switch went off in my head that I'm not going to be going back to professional wrestling as a career. Up to this point, I had been doing it for about 12 or 13 years on the road every day, 5 days a week of every month of every year for just about almost 13 years. And I'm holding my son for the first time in that delivery room. And I mean it. Again, unexpectedly, the switch in my head goes off that, check, please, I'm done. No more going on the road 5 days a week and being away from this little miracle boy that I just begged God for every single night for 12 years. Sincerely. 2.75 years later, my son Jackson then gets diagnosed officially as nonverbal autistic. Okay, we saw the signs, and I kept telling my wife, and we kept learning more about it. Get a diagnosis so we can have early intervention. Right, that's the key. All you parents already know that. So we're very blessed to have an early, detection and diagnosis. And with that, I rolled my sleeves up. So did my wife, and said, "Game on." The Lord made us wait this long for a reason. Because in my head, I was wondering, what are we doing wrong? Why we're not blessing us with this child? We've been begging and begging and begging. Like, that's my biggest achievement, was to be a father, sincerely. Why are you making me, wait so long? That I kept asking myself. So when Jackson came along and he was diagnosed, that's when the aha moment went off. I wasn't ready to be that little boy's dad yet. Simple as that, right? So now Jackson's been diagnosed, right? He's just about to turn 3 years old at the time. And we went into our first IEP meeting, and my wife and I, trying to do the best research we could, but still being greener than grass at this, right? Brand new, not knowing which way was up, right? And there was something, I had a discrepancy about the IEP. And we ended up pulling our son out of the county public school system in Seminole. And we were very blessed to be able to find an amazing school here in Orange County called Princeton House Charter School, where my son still goes to this day and gets the best, absolute best service he can get for his specific needs, much like I was blessed to get back 3,000 years ago, because I'm an old man now. But just the same. And one of the things I wanted to make sure everybody understood here is give that light at the end of the tunnel. For many of you parents that I know go to bed crying at night, like I know I do. And that's with my son, going through a bevy and a litany of different extra services that he has to go to before we even take Jackson to school every day. He has to go to sensory integration therapy one day. He has to go to equine therapy another day. He has to go to feeding therapy another day. He has to go to occupational therapy a different day. And speech, literally 5 days a week, he has to go to a outside therapy session because you can't get enough help, obviously. And that's on top of the amazing work that Princeton House is doing with him. We love that school for him, and he loves it just the same. And we're very, very blessed to have found it. So there's also teachers on here for whatever rhyme or reason. I hope you understand how much we all see you all as superheroes. You don't get paid nearly enough. And oftentimes you think you're probably right, you get the short end of the stick sometimes with parents, much like myself at times, to be fair, coming down on you because we just want the best for our child. But the fact that you chose this as your profession to set the table for someone like myself, again, many years ago though, right? And look what I'm able to do with my life today. So if for nothing else, not to sound arrogant or like a blowhard or full of myself, but I do represent that light at the end of the tunnel, that glimmer of hope for so many of those teachers out there, especially parents that just want to see a sign, anything like that. I know that we're waiting on with our own son, that everything's going to be okay when they get older and hopefully can lead an independent lifestyle. My son, I do believe, will speak. I'll never give up hope on that, neither will my wife, and we will continue to work on it to the best of our ability. And if for whatever rhyme or reason, that's just not in the cards, doesn't matter. I know my boy loves me. He doesn't need to verbally tell me that. I could tell it with every single hug, every kiss on the cheek. I know that little boy loves me as much as I love him. And same with my wife. Again, it's the biggest blessing by far and away we've ever received. Not even close. And I know we live in this weird world where for some weird reason everybody looks up to celebrities. I think that's tacky, but that is a society we live in, right? So I want you to also remember I'm also a former multi-time tag team world heavyweight champion, the only undefeated American Gladiator in the history of the show. All these cool accolades that for some weird reasons, society tells us is cool. None of them could come within a country mile. Not even debatable than the day my little boy was born. And when everything fell into place of why we waited as long as we had to wait. Because it takes, as you parents know, a special parent to raise a special needs or neurodiverse child. It does. And like I said earlier, I know at times it's hard. More times than not, it's hard, obviously. We go to work and we're trying to concentrate on our job, but we all know what we're really doing. We're in our own heads. What's going on with our child at school that day? How are they doing? Is anybody making fun of them? Things like that, right? Are they getting everything they need? Well, I could say rest assured if, again, your child is here in an Orange County public school system, especially, in their ESE, they're in the best hands possible. I love what this county has done with their ESE department in totality. It's not a one-size-fits-all methodology. It is very specific to your child's learning abilities, not disabilities. And I think that's huge, huge. And again, very blessed to be part of the Orange County Public School family. And I just wanted to say again, please never give up hope. I promise you all that are watching this right now, everything's going to happen for your child the way that you want it to. It's going to take some work, but there'll be that glimmer of hope. That hope I'm hopefully able to represent a little bit to you today. Again, I hate talking about myself because it sounds arrogant, and full of myself. But I realize the older I get, this wasn't supposed to be in the cards for me. I mean, the superintendent of the school that I grew up north in Connecticut at literally told my mother I'd be in a institution, in jail, or dead by 21. P.S. That's what you tell an addict. That's not what you talk about. It's not how you talk about a little 4 to 5-year-old boy. But these are the times back many, many years ago. But again, it was the strength that my mom showed me, snatching my hand and marching me out of that school. And again, there's nothing wrong with my Matthew. There's something wrong with you and your school. Even if she was wrong, doesn't matter. That little boy grew very confident that day. And then when I would get older, and I would ride the short bus to school. Back in the day, they'd have a special education bus for those that don't know. And it was a short bus. Let me see my hands on here. Which would have many of us special needs kids on the same bus together. I loved it. I loved being able to help. We had a kid on our bus that was in a wheelchair, and I'd be able to help get him on the elevator of that bus. I'd be able to lift the elevator up and get on. I loved it. I thought it was the best gig ever. I loved it. And until I hit that age where people's opinion all of a sudden matters. And I started getting messed with and bullied a little bit. I would say, God, what was it? First and third grade, and then one more time in sixth. Specifically just because I grew up, learning different than the other kids. Because my classroom was at the very far end of the hallway. And the kids, for whatever rhyme or reason, would make fun of us because we were all in that class. It's a very different day and age than what it is today. Today, that stuff would never be put up with or tolerated, thank God. But they had horrible nicknames for me. They called me a horrible word like Tart Cart Matt, the kindergarten kid. Like, they would call me horrible things that you cannot say today, thank the Lord. But my mom's confidence in me is what always drove me. So what I would do is I would laugh it off or, let it get to me and show that it got to me, the bullying. But what I would do is I would internalize a lot of it. And I remember saying the best retribution I could get to this bullying is proving them wrong in how they thought I couldn't learn like the rest of them and mocking me, making fun of me for it. Right. I've been physically jumped in a boys' bathroom because I was a foot taller than everybody else, keep in mind. And now if I'm in first grade, these kids are in fifth grade. Keep that in mind too. And again, it just made me work them all the more harder to prove these bullies wrong. Fast forward to now I'm finally getting out of special education after my sixth grade year. And I started to be fully mainstreamed at this point. I made the second honors that first year, being fully mainstream in seventh grade. And I got very good at sports. And then that was a game changer for me because now those same bullies were wanting to pick me on their basketball team, their kickball team, their dodgeball team, which can't even play today, baseball, football, you name the team, they wanted me to play with them, right? And I could have done one of two things. I could have been a jerk back to them and say, hey, remember the time that you used to bully me and and then maybe fight them or do something like that? I chose not to. My parents taught me that it takes a bigger person to be able to get your retribution without being physical, while at the same time having that last laugh. And trust me when I tell you, being on national television for almost 12 or 13 years, body slamming, headbutting, suplexing, and any other power bombing galore on national television as a professional wrestler and with WWE, I'd like to say I got the last laugh. And when I go back home into my hometown, I would see some of them every once in a while. Never do I bring it up to them what they did to me. Again, it's not about that retribution. It's more about why did God put us on this planet to begin with? And I believe I have multiple reasons why. I'm also a 16-year recovered opioid addict that I'm very proud about, very proud to have overcome that. So I'm that light at the end of the tunnel for many addicts out there that are both alcoholics or maybe drug addicts that are struggling right now. Maybe you're watching this, I don't know. But very important that you be as transparent as possible instead of hiding things that society deems bad or that makes you a horrible person, whatever. I disagree with that. I think you should show that and wear it like a badge of honor and show the world how you're going to conquer it and overcome it. And I think as a society as a whole, we'll all be all the more better for it, which I know probably sounds very strange as an elected official talking like that. But I remember when I first got asked to run for office, I said, am I going to be allowed to speak about me being proud about being sober? I remember the first campaign manager we hired, he was like, that's probably not a good idea. Your opponent will probably attack you for it and make some black and white photos of you looking like a drug addict, Matt. I don't know if that's smart. And I go, well, this guy's fired. And we found somebody new who believed in me and believed in my story. And instead of running from it, I play offense with it because it's important that any which way that we grew up, anything that the world deems as negative or maybe that we struggled with, don't hide from it. Like I said, wear it like a badge of honor so you can help others in this world that are probably struggling with the same thing. So with that said, I went on to become elected in 2017 to our Longwood City Commission. Again, not a political bone in my body. I had no idea, no interest whatsoever in being in politics. Hell, I didn't even watch the news. I should probably be embarrassed about that, but that's the truth. I was on the road 5 days a week of every month of every year for just about 13 years wrestling. So when I came home, trust me, it's not to watch the news. It's there to spend time with my wife. And then obviously then having Jackson, right? So why would I run for public office? Because I believe it is my job and it's my honor, quite frankly. My job is to use, and I hate that word, my celebrity, it's an ugly word, as a platform and a vehicle to help others in this community because so many others helped me get here, especially my special needs teachers. I love them to death, and I'm very blessed to have had them in my world, along with my mom and dad. So to every parent, again, that's watching this, please know that you're doing the right thing. I know we don't ever really think we do. I don't know about you guys, but I'm the most insecure dad on the planet in my own head of not thinking I'm doing enough for Jackson. That's the truth. I think we'll always be like that, honestly. I think that's what makes us a good parent, quite frankly, not leaving any stone unturned. So here's the deal. If you're on this platform right now watching this, you're already ahead of the game because this is one of the coolest things I've seen. And I wish we had a heck of a lot more of this across the country. Very, very proud of the Orange County public school system. It's been my absolute honor to talk to you guys today. Thank you so much for having me. God bless.
Thank you so much, Mr. Morgan. We truly appreciate you coming out to share your story with us. Your journey is also so inspiring. It's truly a reminder that our possibilities are endless despite our challenges that we face each day.